Ziggy here for the Zigs to Boxing. As always, an absolute pleasure to be with the CEO, Frank Smith. Frank, here in your call. Never a cold one in here, let's say that, but how are we feeling, sir?
Lovely day, lovely day. The sun is shining in London.
Yeah.
Makes you never want to leave.
I know, it's good to see the return of the sun and obviously the return of the youngest British champion, George Liddard, on Saturday night taking on Tyler Denny. Tough test for him, but I mean, tough test here last time out in October and he came through with flying colours.
100%, but that's what he wants to do. He wants to test himself. He wants to step up those levels. He's a brilliant fighter, George Liddard. He's doing everything right. Tyler Denny's going to come in and give it his all. This is a big moment for Tyler as well, but it's a proper fight on Saturday at the Copperbox.
George Liddard obviously dressed to the nines at these press conferences. I mean, he backs it up in the ring. I guess you've got a star on your hands if he gets it done in emphatic fashion.
100%, he gets the game. He sells tickets, he builds a profile for himself, he promotes himself, and he goes in there and he delivers performances. And that's what you need. You can't just have one of them, you need to have all of them.
Yeah. Is boxing losing that a little bit, where fighters are focusing too much on the performance rather than the entertainment element of it all?
I think, look, if you don't put in the performance, there's nothing to be done anyway, in truth. So like, if you're not performing in the ring, it's very difficult, isn't it? So you need to deliver across all elements. You need to perform in the ring and you need to promote yourself, and it's a fine balance. But yeah, a lot of fighters don't understand it and don't understand that side of the sport. Because there's been some huge, brilliant names in the past who are great athletes, great fighters, but have never had the commercial profile they deserve.
Do you think that that's something that, I mean, George sells a lot of tickets. I mean, I remember being here last October and the place was packed for him. That guys like him selling tickets, and obviously the face-off the other day, as a promoter, is that something you're trying to get into the guys? You have those face-offs
100%.
and get a bit more lively between
100%.
the two?
That's what people want to see. But at the same time, people also want to be entertained by the action in the ring. So, we need to deliver on both sides.
Talking about delivering, Dana White has been very, obviously, outspoken. We've spoken a lot about it, and I'm sure every interview you do about it, but obviously Dana's signed his new deal with Sky here in the UK, and every press conference he's talking about all the things he's doing in boxing. I mean, when you look at the shows they've done, Jagba and Charles Martin, and recently Jai Patara, are they hitting the mark in your opinion?
No, look, I think if any other traditional promoter or other promoter was doing it, everyone would say, what a load of shit. Just in truth. Not in a bad, but like, I'm just being honest. Like, if we put on some of those headlines, people would be like, what is this? So, but it's like a propaganda machine, isn't it? Of like, well, we're beating up babies, this is easy. Okay, and I'm sure they're going to do amazing things. Like, they're a huge business, they're sensational at what they do. But they're not there yet, and you can build up this. Again, you can talk as loudly as you want about we're doing amazing things. The proof's in the pudding, when it comes down to it. All these people come into boxing and say boxing's broken. It's not. It's not. It's not broken. There's always going to be room for new brands. There's always going to be new promoters. Promoters come, promoters go. These are serious operators. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see how that plays out.
Something I've always appreciated being at Matchroom shows is that you and Eddie never, go into, can you ask this and that, you can't say this, you can't do that. Something I find is obviously getting access to the UFC and to Zuffa is very difficult, especially for people who want to ask the questions that we all want to hear asked, right? When you're a promoter and you hear that they're, asking to see questions and interviews beforehand and you can only ask what they approve, what do you make of that?
It's the position they're in, isn't it? They feel like they have the right to do it. But I also think you have to immerse yourself in this world, right? And Dana, it's not his world. As much as he loves boxing, he couldn't tell you what opponent Callum Walsh is going to fight next, or Jai Patara. Do you know what I mean? Like, that's the reality. So they have to be guarded with the questions. And there's certain things that they can't talk about. And also the idea has changed so much. At the start, it was like, we're not going to work with any sanctioning bodies. We're going to fuck everyone, right? So like, why do you then you're not going to endear yourself to people wanting to help you or work with you? Because a month ago or 3 months ago, you weren't working with a sanctioning body. Now you're crying because the IBF didn't sanction the fight, or the IBF didn't. To me, it's like, what's the path? What's the plan? Maybe there isn't a plan, But it's going to be fun, and they're going to do some big things. Of course they are. And the fact that Dana is picking Eddie as his sparring partner to go up against every week. Look, I've worked for Eddie obviously for 18 years, so I may be biased, but I don't think there's anyone that comes close to what Eddie does in terms of promoting, talking about boxing, the passion he has for the sport. Dana White can't beat Eddie at that. He's got a huge platform, bigger platform, of course, but the more he talks about Eddie Hearn, great.
Jai Patara, obviously someone you want to work with, he's more of a fighter than a businessman, right? when he's getting into Zuffa and signing the deals with them, will the world title, that IBF title, will that have been promised to him, do you think, in that negotiation? That, look, if you come to Zuffa, you will be able to box to that. Is that something you know about?
I guess so, because that's obviously where the expectations come from, because all he talks about is being undisputed. So like that's all he ever talks about is being undisputed. But you're going to an organisation who openly have said, we don't care about the belts and we're not going to work, so which one is it? Again, it's unclear. Yeah. And if you take the money and if you take that option, you lose out on the other side. Can't have it both ways.
Rattle through a couple more. Anthony Joshua seems a bit more lively and looks like a return could be maybe not imminent, but sometime in the near future.
Yeah, look, he's back training. He's back in camp with Usyk's team. He's obviously been ticking over up to this point. The key is getting him back in the gym, training to his full ability, and then we go from there. No plans just yet, but we shall see.
There was a fear from myself that under Derek James, especially against like Jermaine Franklin, he was looking, as Tony Bellew phrased it, to turn a dog into a cat and box perfectly almost. And Anthony Joshua's always been someone that's knocked people out. Do you think there's also a fear that boxing with Usyk, in that camp, there'll be a look to change him into a boxer rather than someone who knocks people out?
I think they'll just work to the best of his ability. Every athlete has their own assets that you have to work with, and they're obviously very good at what they do, and you shall see that.
Conor Benn, I spoke to you the day before the announcement came out, and I mean, yeah, we're all transparent and you've spoken about it, but the fight with Regis Prograis, why would he take a fight at 150 pounds? Is that something you were discussing with him, that he didn't want to make 147? Why would he not cut the extra £3, in your opinion, to actually fight at the weight class he says he wants to fight the titles at?
Maybe he's not sure if he can make 147. I'm not sure. It's a strange fight. It's not the kind of fights he was looking for, but so be it.
Is that a lack in confidence for Conor, do you think?
I don't know. You'd have to ask him. I don't know. I'm not going to slate him. He's doing his own thing. It's a strange fight to come back into.
Is it his hardest opponent he's ever faced?
Regis Prograis is probably one of the most skilled fighters he's faced, but Regis is probably too small for him, in truth. Like, Regis is more skilled than the other fighters he's probably been in there with, yes. But, I don't think if that was a fight someone said Regis Prograis, Conor Benn, and we were doing it, we'd be like, what? In truth, in our office. But each to their own. Each to their own. Good luck to him. Wish him all the best.
Final one from me. Tom Aspinall, the signing. We were here for it last week. I'm a big UFC fan. When he fought on short notice, 2 weeks, against Sergey Pavlovich for the interim world title, the guy who at the time was knocking everyone out undefeated. For a fight like that, short notice, obviously all the things I just mentioned, was he getting a level of purse that he should deserve and that you guys would pay for an interim world heavyweight title fight of two names of that calibre? Is that something that you see those contracts and you're almost in disbelief in?
Yeah, but I don't think you have to see the contracts to be in disbelief. I think you just have to see the public figures which are out there as a publicly traded company. They pay something like 16% of revenue to fighters. Tremendous business, by the way, if you're looking at it from a business standpoint. But from an athlete's perspective, it's wild. For the money that's generated. And part of me feels that's why UFC don't want stars too big. They want the brand to be big and the fighters not to get too big and not to believe in themselves too much. So it's but like I say, amazing business. So fair play. But are the fighters getting what they deserve? No. But then the fighters have signed it. Do you know what I mean? Like I said, like Tom said himself, we signed up for it. We signed up for things. But over time, that has got to change, I would think. Because I read something yesterday, their results, 225 million paid to fighters. They make 850 million EBITDA. Amazing.
Yeah. Frank, as always, appreciate your time, mate.
Cheers, mate.